Welcome back, my friends, to another discussion here on Biblical Musings. We're going to finish up talking about Moses and the burning bush. All right. So last week we looked at and talked about how Moses went from being a prince of Egypt, a man seemingly in his prime and in a prime position to do something incredible and dramatic in history. Um, I'm not going to go to a lot of specific examples, but if you're familiar with a lot of history, big moves in history are often made by men who've been raised up in the culture of their enemy, if you will, and nurtured there and learned their secrets and then come back to defeat them and set their people free in some way. If you want some specifics, you could maybe go to Arminius and the Germans versus the Romans or something of that nature. But you have a younger man who's up and coming, and he sees the plight of his people, and he learns from his enemies, and he's highly regarded by his enemies and his friends, and he leads his people to victory. And seemingly Moses would be that man as Prince of Egypt, right? We know from Acts chapter 7 in Stephen's defense and his speech about Jewish history and such, that Moses was a man mighty in both word and deed, that he could speak fluently and well and knowledgeably, and that he could lead by example as well. Mighty in both word and deed. And so as Prince of Egypt, and we know from Exodus chapters 2, I believe it is, that he sees the plight of his fellow Hebrews, Israelites. He knows he's one of them as a Prince of Egypt. So he knows his heritage. He sees the plight of his brethren, and he wants to change that plight. He even kills an Egyptian to save a Hebrew slave. And the next day, he's trying to sow harmony amongst the Israelites there. But he fails miserably. And then he runs away and hides in the desert herding sheep or goats or whatever else he herds in the desert with his father-in-law for 40 years. And then we get to the burning bush, and we have the 80-year-old Moses hacking around, about to retire probably. Maybe he's already retired, I don't know. And God calls him from the burning bush. And we talked about that a little bit last week. And we're still there in that event as we start chapter 4. And we're going to look at that, hopefully, today. So that's where we're at. We're at 80-year-old Moses, retirement age at least, I would say, in his own context. And he may be a failure by every human measure. I mean, look at this man objectively. Now, I know Moses is a hero, and he'll become a hero, and he is a hero, a great hero of faith. But look at Moses standing at the burning bush. Would anyone consider this man a hero success story? An example of faith to be held up, of belief and trust in God for all generations at this moment? And I'm going to ask you that same question probably at the end of this chapter, and we may even have the same answer. I don't know. But here he is. He has gone from being Prince of Egypt, set up maybe more than any other person in recent history of his own time, to free his people and do something truly amazing. In history, for his people, for God's kingdom, all that stuff. He's gone from that to herding his father-in-law's sheep. They're not his sheep. They're his father-in-law's sheep. Now, he does married and he has a couple of kids. That's good for him. But getting married and having a couple of kids is not extraordinary. As wonderful as that is. A lot of people get married and have kids. So that doesn't automatically qualify you as a place to be looked up to for all of human history and as a symbol of faith and all of that. So he's herding his father-in-law's sheep, hiding out in the wilderness, and he's never gone back to try and free his people in 40 years, and it doesn't look like he ever plans to try, especially as we look at what he says next. So let's see what he says. We're in Exodus chapter 4. We're going to begin in verse 1. I encourage you to open your Bible, translation of your choice. Just pick a good one. And we'll begin. Then Moses said, "What if they will not believe me or listen to what I say?" Because God has said in the previous chapter, and that's how we ended the last video, I believe, is go, I'm going to be with you. You're going to You're going to do some mighty wonders. Pharaoh's not going to believe at first. I'll change his mind with some miracles. It's all going to work out in the end. You're going to take plenty of stuff from the Egyptians. You're going to go out into the wilderness, and we're going to win. Boom. Go get it done. Moses says, what if they won't believe me or listen to me? For they may say, the Lord's not appeared to you. The Lord said to him, what's that in your hand? He said, a staff. He said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moses fled from it, sensible man. But the Lord said to Moses, stretch out your hand and grasp it by its tail. So he stretched out his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand. That they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob, has appeared to you. The Lord furthermore said to him, now put your hand into your bosom. So he put his hand into his bosom. When he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. Then he said, put your hand back into your bosom again. So he put his hand back into his bosom again. When he took it out of his bosom, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. If they will not believe you or heed the witness of the first sign, they may believe the witness of the last sign. But if they will not believe even these two signs, or heed what you say, then you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on the dry ground, and the water which you take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. So God says, I'm giving you 3 miracles to prove that you talked to the Lord here in the wilderness. I mean, 3 miracles that by all accounts, no matter the day and age, today, 2021, month of May, or a long time ago, 1400 BC or somewhere thereabouts, should get the attention of any crowd. It really should. You start pulling out real healing and miracles and back and forth and turning snakes out of staves and back again. You're going to get some attention, I think. You're going to get some attention. But that's not good enough for Moses. Then Moses said, please, Lord, I have never been eloquent, neither recently nor in time past, nor since you have spoken to your servant, for I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And I think Moses is lying. I really do. I think Moses is lying. Because Stephen says in his defense, and I have no reason to doubt his testimony, that Moses was raised up to be mighty in word and in deed as a prince of Egypt. I mean, it makes sense to grow up in a king's court, to be surrounded by courtiers and men of noble birth and generals of armies and high priests and all the things that are going to be at the greatest empire of the ancient world, of art, architecture, military might, all the things. They check all the boxes. To be raised up as a prince of Egypt in that culture to the age of 40 years. We're not talking about a 15-year-old boy. We're talking about to the age of 40 to say, I don't know how to talk to my fellow Israelites who are slaves. I think Moses is lying. I'm going to call his bluff on that one. And the Lord's not too pleased either. The Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Or who has makes him mute or deaf or seeing or blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now then go, and even I, will be with your mouth, and teach you what you are to say. I'll teach you what to say. God says, who made your mouth? Who made language? Who gave you eyes and ears and all of that? Didn't I make all those things? I'm the one sending you. I made the instruments by which I'm sending you and telling you to use, and I'll even teach you what to say. I'll give you my biblically... My truth-inspired heavenly teleprompter. You'll have a script to speak off of. Just go tell them what I'm going to tell you. Do the miracles I'm giving you the power to do. Go free my people who are also your people. And Moses said, please, Lord, now send the message by whomever you will. Your translation may say something different. In essence, Moses says, please send somebody else. Please just send someone else. Pardon me, I have to laugh. And not because I think I would be any better than Moses, but because it's so pathetic. It is. It is. I think if we're honest with ourselves, we look at Moses here at the burning bush and say, can't God choose anybody else? Surely there's somebody else on planet Earth that God can send to rescue his people, right? Surely there's another human being. Well, hold that thought. Hold that thought. Then the angel of the Lord burned against Moses. Anger of the Lord burned against Moses. And he said, "Is there not your brother Aaron the Levite? I know that he speaks fluently, and moreover, behold, he's coming out to meet you. And when he sees you, he'll be glad in his heart. Speak to him and put my words in his mouth. And I, even I, will be with your mouth and his mouth, and I will teach you what you are to do. Moreover, he shall speak for you to the people, and he will be as a mouth for you, and you will be as God to him. You shall take in your hand this staff with which you shall perform the signs." If God isn't holding his hand all along the way, I don't know who is. I don't know who is. Moses finally goes. He can't get out of it. Verse 18. Then Moses departed and returned to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "Please, let me go that I may return to my brethren who are in Egypt and see if they are still alive." And Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." Now the Lord said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all the men who are seeking your life are dead." So Moses took his wife and his sons, mounted them on a donkey, and returned to the land of Egypt. Moses also took the staff of God in his hand. The Lord said to Moses, "When you go back to Egypt, see that you perform before Pharaoh all the wonders which I put in your power. But I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, 'Thus says the Lord, Israel is my son, my firstborn. So I said to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. But you have refused to let him go. Behold, I will kill your son, your firstborn.'" So we get a hint at the future that it's going to take drastic measures to get God's people free. But that's a little bit beyond the scope of our lesson, so we'll leave it be for now. Then we get a strange story we probably leave out of almost all the... I don't know that I've ever seen a rendition or a telling of Moses' life. 10 Commandments, Prince of Egypt. I'm trying to think back some different sermons or things I've heard that mention the next paragraph or two in relation to that story, because it's so strange. But let's see what we can do with it. Let's see what we can do with it. Now it came about at the lodging place on the way that the Lord met him and sought to put him to death. All right, so Moses is on his way back to Egypt. Apparently, he's decided to begin the mission God has given him. Begrudgingly, dragging his feet to be sure, but apparently he's on the way. But the Lord is angry, and he's going to kill him. He's going to kill Moses before he even starts. So what's going on here? Verse 25. Then Zipporah, that's Moses' wife, took a flint or a flint knife, and cut off her son's foreskin and threw it at Moses' feet. And she said, "You are indeed a bridegroom of blood to me." So he, as in capital E, God, let him, Moses, alone at that time. She said, "You are a bridegroom of blood because of the circumcision." And that's all we get on the story. So what happened? What just happened? I'll give you what I think just happened. This is not all just from me. I've heard people talk, read some things, and this is my best educated answer as to what happened. And I believe this to be true. It's not just a guess. This is what I believe is happening. So Moses is on his way back to Egypt. He's there to do what? He's there to set God's people free, and then what? Take them back to God's mountain, Sinai, Horeb, so that they can worship God and be in covenant again. All right. Now, if you've read Genesis 17, Genesis is the foundation of all of the Bible, obviously. But if you've read Genesis 17 and you read it carefully, you'll know that when Abraham gets the covenant of circumcision, the circumcision, can't speak today. Circumcision is the sign or the symbol, if you will, of the covenant the Israelite is already in. All right? Does that make sense? So circumcision is the sign of the covenant the Israelite is already in. And it's for all the generations moving forward until God decides to put an end to it. What that means is if you don't circumcise, and it says this clearly in Genesis 17, about 3/4 of the way through the chapter, left-hand side of the page, right here. It says if you don't circumcise that 8-day old male child, then that child is out of covenant. The covenant has been broken in regards to that child. Now, at this point, it's not the child making a decision. We know that. But the point is that the child was born into covenant, and then that covenant is broken because the sign is not upheld, right? Why is this important? Moses is a Jew, or an Israelite at this time. They'll be Jews later. He's going back to free the Israelites to go be in covenant again and worship at God's mountain. But his son has not been circumcised. Moses has no excuse for this. There's no excuse that his son should not have been circumcised. He's 40 years old, Moses is. When he leaves Egypt, he's 80 years old now, which means he's lived in Midian for 40 years. And I don't think his son was born 7 days before, okay? It doesn't give his son's age here, but I get the idea he's been married a while. So he has no excuse for his sons to have not been circumcised yet. In other words, he's broken the covenant in regards to his own children, and he's on his way to go set God's people free so they can be in covenant again. You can't be a leader when you're not even adhering to the same worship principles or belief system which you're going to go set up, if you know what I mean. And I think that's why God is angry. And God is coming to the meeting place, or coming to this stopping place, lodging place is the word mine uses, verse 24, to put him to death. Because Moses can't do this. God's minister, if you will, God's servant who's going to go set his people free to lead them to worship and bring them back to him, to bring them into covenant, to be the lawgiver is what Moses will be, cannot be his own children be out of covenant, cannot be broken covenant. That would not be that would not work at all. That would not work at all. But Moses' wife saves the day. She does. She circumcises their son in a flash heartbeat, does some real quick surgery, and the situation appears to be saved. All right. I know that's a strange story, but I think it's just another snapshot look at where Moses is at, both physically and spiritually. He's older. He's ran away from all responsibilities or things he probably has ever believed in, of justice, of setting his people go, of fighting against all of that, of worshiping God, of all those things. He's left all that behind, and he's lived half his life in the desert herding sheep for his father-in-law. And now God's sending him back. And so Moses going back to Egypt is almost as much about Moses being saved and brought back into the fold as the people of Israel being set free. It really is. And we have to say here, like we said at the beginning, couldn't God have just chosen someone else? Because when I think of Moses, and I hope you do too, by the way, when I think of Moses, I think of the mighty Moses who stands before armies and says, God's going to fight our battles for us. We're going to cross this Red Sea. Now, he doesn't even know that yet, but he knows he needs the people to stand firm and not fear. And he's going to stand before Pharaoh again and again and again and say, set my people free. And then he's going to go up on that mountain for 40 days and 40 nights and get the testimonies of God, only to come down and see a golden staff. He's going to break those tablets. He's going to grind up that golden calf, make them drink it, and he's going to go back up and get some more. Now, that's the Moses I remember, right? But the Moses we have here seems to be an entirely different person. And this is what I want you to walk away with. Well, I hope you walk away with, at least from these two lessons. When you realize that all the heroes in the Bible, save one, pretty much, Jesus, are flawed people who seem to have no talent, no natural ability, maybe even no inclination, do all the amazing things with God's help, with God's aid, with God doing all the lifting, really. They're able to do them only when they realize how truly inadequate they are, and they trust in God and go do it anyway. They do. They know they're not good speakers. They know they're not rich, powerful, famous, and wise. They know they don't have a big old army. They know they don't have all those things, but they say, well, if God can do it, He can. He's done it before, He can do it again. And they go and try and do what God told them to do anyway, and that's when they become heroes. That's when they do something truly incredible. That's when great things get done in the Bible. When Gideon is there hiding in the threshing floor in the valley, which is not where you put threshing floors. You put them up on mountaintops for the wind and all that. When he's there hiding from the Midianites, and God says, "Oh, you mighty valiant warrior, come lead my armies." Gideon looks around his shoulder to see the valiant warrior, because he knows it's not him. And Gideon gives amazing speeches and gets thousands, tens of thousands to come to the call to arms. It's going to be a tough fight. They're going to be 3 or 4 to 1. But Gideon knows that tough fights can sometimes come out right with proper positioning, tactics, and with fervor and all of that. So he thinks, we'll do it anyway. We'll be outnumbered 3 or 4 to 1. We'll fight to the end. We'll try our best to gain a great victory and set our people free. And God says, you got too many people. You need to send all these guys home. Keep about 300. And don't take any weapons. You won't need those. Get you some clay pots and some torches and some trumpets. There you go. That's how we'll win this battle. You see, when Gideon, when Moses, when Elijah, when all the Bible heroes, the New Testament apostles, when they realize they're not awesome and amazing and talented and great and wise, but they try anyway. They go out there fully trusting in God. That's when the great things happen, because with God, all things are possible. And by the way, when we realize we're so weak, and we're able to fully trust in God to do all of it, because we know we can't do it on our own, it brings Him all the glory. And that's what we're after anyway, isn't it? Because we can't stand on our own strength. And anyone who thinks they can is a fool. I encourage you to read Daniel's chapters 1 through the end and see if man truly stands by their own strength. And I think the answer is no. But I guess what I want to leave you with is, maybe you're past the age of doing things, you might say, for the kingdom. Maybe you're too young. Maybe you're in the middle and you don't have time. Maybe you're not a great speaker. Maybe you're not rich. Maybe you're not wise. Well, so what? God is all of those things. He is. He's timeless. He's the creator. He can create wealth out of nothing if He wants to. He controls all things on the earth and in the universe. And if He's sending you to do a thing, however small or large, He says a cup of water is large in His mind. A cup of water for a small child is large in His mind. But if He's sending you to do a mission, you have all the resources you need. I don't care if you're deaf, blind, mute, and lame at the same time. If God's sending you to do the mission He's told you to do, if you feel convicted to go out in some way, then I believe firmly you have all the resources at hand. All that's required is for you to humbly obey. Well, this has been my ramblings on Exodus chapter 4. If you've watched this long, I thank you for joining me. Till next time, God bless.